What is going on? Welcome to the Big Reptile Talk podcast. Today we have an icon in the building. He does some amazing stuff for us, constantly campaigning. Mr. Phil Goss. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Not too bad, man. So, you're constantly just out talking to people and campaigning for, reptile keepers. I love what USARK is doing, man. So I want to just kind of, touch bases, kind of get people, the knowledge that they need, just get them more aware. So let's talk about, the membership tiers. There's not just one membership you can do. There's multiple things you can do. You don't have to give $10,000. Can you tell me, about each tier?
Yeah, who the heck can give $10,000? It's not me, but greatly appreciate those companies and big breeders that can, even little breeders. Some of them really pony up. But yeah, I mean anything. Donation started. We have a $5 monthly donation that's called our recurring bronze membership. We have a student membership that's only $20 a year, and then it goes up to $40 for bronze, $250 for silver, $1,000 for gold. And obviously anything in between. You can do a $1 donation if you want. You can get on and just do a one-time, $1, whatever you want to do. And, I get asked that a lot. People say, I don't really have any money, but I want to support USARK. There's totally tons of free stuff you can do too. I mean, just sharing our action alerts, sharing our newsletters. It's free to sign up to get the newsletters, any kind of that stuff. That's free. We greatly appreciate it because spreading awareness is part of USARK and the Reptile Nation too.
Right. I love that. It's just, anything helps, man. That's part of the message that we want to spread today. Anything helps. Now, the next question I want to ask, and like I said, we're gonna get some knowledge and we're gonna have a little bit of fun with it. So we're gonna kind of mix it up a little bit. But the next question I want to ask is, what are some of your most memorable triumphs with USARK? So,
Obviously, the one we're most well known for was our federal lawsuit, which that was 3.5 years in court. It was not much fun at all. That thing drug out forever. So we filed that. I became president early 2013. We actually filed that lawsuit about 10 months after I became president. So it was really hot and wild when I got started with this. And then, like I said, it took 3.5 years, but we finally won. And what that did was it allowed people to ship species that are listed as injurious under the Lacey Act across state lines. So now you can sell and transport those animals across state lines. One of the biggest ones is the reticulated python, which is obviously getting really popular, even more popular with some of the dwarf and super dwarfs that are coming out. Guys like Garrett Hartle really pushing the popularity of retics. And, not all of them are big 12, 15, 18-foot snakes. You get some of them that stay well under 10 feet, and it's really helping. Some people even call it the bonsaiing of the industry. We're kind of getting smaller snakes and lizards are getting more popular. But yeah, by far, that's what we're most well known for was that federal lawsuit victory.
Right. I love that, man. And I'm sure y'all have had multiple victories. Don't get it twisted. USARK is they fighting and they winning. You might not hear about a lot of them, but they're doing a lot of iconic things. Now, I know you're on the road constantly and you're flying here, you're flying there, but I am kind of curious, what is your personal collection of reptiles looking like?
Yeah, it's fewer than it used to be. I used to breed all kinds of geckos and stuff that was higher maintenance, tortoises. But now all I have are boa constrictors and blue tongue skinks, and I may be getting a few leachianas here and there. So kind of a
Nice.
broad spectrum from geckos to big snakes.
Right. I love that. So there you have it. He's out fighting for us, and not just fighting for us. He's a part of the hobby. He's a keeper too. Got to have reptiles if you're fighting for them. I love
Yeah,
that. Now,
1997, I bred my first. Bred, I was keeping longer, but 97 is when I bred my first species. It was gold dust day geckos. So yeah, I've been around for a minute.
I love that. Now, and like I said, We're gonna get knowledge and we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. So I gotta ask you a hot seat question.
All right.
You know so many people in the hobby. So I gotta ask, who is your current favorite reptile keeper?
You can't do that. I'm not allowed to answer questions like that. That's just gonna get me in trouble. You talk about a hot
No.
seat. That's gonna be a hot month. that's gonna be when I show up at Texas NARBC this weekend. Somebody's gonna be like, "Hey man, why didn't you say me?" I don't know. How about this? I'll take the bureaucrat way out of it and say that my favorite person is anybody who supports and spreads awareness for USARK.
You know what? I'll
I'm gonna
accept. I'll
weasel out
accept
of
that
it.
answer. He said he's gonna weasel out of it. That is hilarious. But you know what? I'll accept that answer because we love everybody. I've hung out with some of the most amazing people in the hobby, and just I love everybody. I do have an audience question. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Echo does Kurt Wood, my Animal House. Audience question.
Yep.
He wants to know: are you gonna keep the fight in Florida going?
Oh yeah, the fight in Florida never stops. So, and actually, I'm glad that got brought up. Before I get into the fight in Florida, I want to reiterate: there's a USARK Florida now, and we are separate organizations. So I helped them get up and going. We obviously support USARK Florida, allowed them to use our name, but we are separate entities. So if you donate to USARK Florida, that money is going to go specifically for Florida fights. If you donate to USARK, obviously we're a national organization, but we still do have quite a bit of money that we're using in Florida. Obviously, I'm on all the board meeting calls with USARK Florida. But again, if you are a Florida resident, I strongly encourage you. Right now, obviously USARK appreciates donations and we need them, but we really got to step up and support USARK Florida too, because they've got a lawsuit going currently. We filed a lawsuit last year that we actually won. Which repealed a ban. But unfortunately, the Fish and Wildlife Commission went ahead and passed it again through their rulemaking authority. So now we're suing the Fish and Wildlife Commission for a second time, trying to reverse the ban on large constrictors, Nile monitors, tegus, green iguanas. But there is still a lawsuit in play. It's just, I hope it doesn't take 3.5 years like our federal lawsuit, but we're already, what are we, 5 or 6 months into it? So on this second lawsuit. So, but yeah, there is a lawsuit. Right. Check out usarkflorida.org for updates on that.
Alex Agamage, he just answered that. So just check out USARK Florida, and he wants to know what's some of the stuff what can he do to help you guys in Florida?
Yeah, helping in Florida. Oh, I hate to be negative, but I gotta get into this a little bit. So last year, if you were following the Florida stuff, there was legislation that was proposed, and unfortunately we did not have enough reptile people contacting the legislators. The legislators were hard to get an ear because there just weren't enough people who were conducting the alerts. I mean, for example, we put out what we call an easy alert, which all you do is put in your name and your email and city and state, obviously. And we had less than 200 people who did that. And there are literally 10,000s of people keeping reptiles in Florida. I mean, this was like the third or fourth hearing on it. So I'm not saying only 200 people got involved total. Some of them may have, contacted previous committees as it was going through the legislative process. But, when you only get a couple hundred people going up and you go up and try and tell the lawmakers that there are tens of thousands of reptile keepers in Florida, they're probably not going to believe you. So, I mean, that's one of the big things is just make sure you follow USARK and USARK Florida for any alerts. And again, that's something that's free to do. When we post an alert, I mean, it takes a minute or 2 minutes to copy and paste an email and send it off. And we make it so easy to do, but people still got to do it. So that's one of the biggest things is, again, just jump in and spend at least your 1 or 2 minutes to oppose this stuff.
Right. Now, with you being just constantly on the road, constantly so busy, I did want to ask, what, today is USARK's current focus? What state are they currently focused on right now? Because, honestly, you can't focus on 50 states at the same exact time, or maybe you can. I don't know how big you are, but what, the question I'm saying is just right now, what's your main focus? where there's just, the most pressure on reptile keepers? You know the question.
Yeah, right now, honestly, all eyes are on Florida. I mean, Florida has a unique situation. Obviously, North Dakota, Wyoming, it doesn't matter. North Carolina, they don't have to worry about invasive species like Florida does. Obviously, the southern four counties in Florida have a climate that's unique to the United States, except for maybe Hawaii. But Hawaii already has a ban on all snakes and most non-natives anyway. But yeah, I mean, all eyes are on Florida because the other state wildlife agencies are kind of watching what Florida does, because unfortunately, I think what we're running into is that some of these state agencies have animal rights people who are kind of getting into these agencies, and they don't want people keeping these animals. That's plain and simple what it comes down to. So if you get someone with authority in some of these state wildlife agencies and they say, oh, hey, look what Florida did, they may do it in a state like Arkansas or Indiana. I mean, somewhere where something couldn't be invasive, but they say, hey, these other agencies are doing it, so why don't we do it? So certainly all eyes are on Florida, and then probably followed secondly by North Carolina. We had that issue with an escaped cobra in North Carolina, and we actually did quite a bit of work already in the city of Raleigh. They actually proposed a blanket exotic ban, which would have banned just about everything. Now they're looking at possibly medically significant venomous snakes, so to exclude hognose snakes and possibly crocodilians. And right now, everything else is off the table at this point. We don't know what it's going to come down to, but obviously that was already a big step in the right direction.
Right. I love that. So kind of just that's how you pick your focus, where where the most troubled state is. That's where y'all going.
Yeah, it's where stuff pops up. We'd like to hopefully starting next year we can get some more proactive stuff going, but we're pretty much reactionary a lot of the time because the stuff pops up, and and obviously I got to throw this out there. USARK, anytime I give a talk, I say we represent responsible reptile and amphibian keepers. I always highlight that word responsible because I'm sorry, but if you're someone who's letting venomous snakes get loose out of your house, or actually it was his parents' house, apparently the guy lives in his parents' basement. That's not responsible. You can't have animals getting loose because that's, and all it takes is one person. I mean, North Carolina already has a state law on venomous crocodilians and big snakes, but once somebody lets a snake get loose, that city jumped right on it. Even though nothing may change at the state level, Raleigh was all over it. And anybody who thinks it doesn't take just one person is absolutely wrong.
Right. And that's true. All it takes is one person to mess it up for the whole, the whole community. Just letting a snake go and not saying that'll cause laws in a whole state. Now, and like I said, I appreciate you being here. I got another hot seat question.
Hi.
So there is a USARK fight coming up, and I got to get your opinion on who's going to win, Feely or Antoine.
Honestly, a lot of this stuff I don't get involved in, and I'm not a big social media guy. I do stuff with the USARK social media. I wouldn't even have known about this, except I think it may have been John sent an email or a message to the Facebook page, and I didn't even know about this fight. And then the guy from Lone Star Reptiles called me up and invited me out to the fight, so I'm going to do my best to get out to it. But you want me to call who's going to win this thing?
You got to. I just had Mutation Creation on, and I said same question: who you think is winning, Feely or Antoine? He said Antoine. So who you leaning towards? We love them both.
I haven't run into Feely. I ran into Antoine last weekend at the Reptile Super Show, and I know sizes and everything, but he's a big guy. I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to get in the ring and tussle with him. And obviously, he told me who was going to win. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I'll size him up in the ring and see who looks better. I follow MMA a little bit, and but yeah, I'm big on looks and seeing how they look in the ring. So I can't call a winner on that. You gotta work on these hot seat questions, man. Making this hard for me.
The hot seat question is to make you sweat. But again, much love to Feely and Antoine. We love you both. You're doing some amazing stuff for us
Yeah, that's
now,
awesome. That's awesome.
right? Isn't that awesome that they're auctioning off spots for their shorts? You know, for sponsors, they're going to do a fight, and Super Chats is going to USARK. And just, I want to fight somebody now. Send
I
y'all some
tell you,
money.
man, that's outside the box, and that's awesome. We had some guy, I don't know how he did it or how he raised that much, but he wore a bracelet for a whole year, a show bracelet from the Daytona Reptile Expo, Kobe.
Uh,
And he raised like $3,500 because people donated and said, "Hey, if you wear that ugly, nasty, dirty thing for a year, we'll donate money." And he handed over $3,500 to USARK at Daytona just for wearing a show bracelet for a whole year. So yeah, anybody can raise money and help us out.
right now. What do you think has been the hardest part? About fighting for us keepers. What has been the hardest part? Do you think it's been like participation? Do you think it's just been just the keepers that have been letting snakes go? What has been just the hardest part? Do you think for you, Sark?
Yeah, honestly, the hardest part is just getting people to get involved. I mean, it's just tough. Nobody wants to really get involved until it's knocking on their front door. You get, and we get it all the time. We get people who aren't USARK members. Some people are even like, they'll contact us and say, "I didn't know who USARK was, but somebody told me about him on Facebook, and it's, a city or state proposes something." And then they're like, "What the heck do I do?" Whereas if they would, been paying attention, we probably could have stopped it a little sooner. I mean, we've had people in states where something has kind of happened and been done for a year, and they'll contact us and say, like, "I didn't know anything about it." Well, if you had been following us, you would have known about it. But it comes back to what I brought up early in Florida. The more opposition that the lawmakers hear, the way easier it is to stop this stuff. So again, it's just people need to stop being apathetic and kind of get involved and at least follow our newsletters and
Right,
pay
right,
attention.
right. I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, over in North Carolina, and I sent this to Jeremy because he's a good friend of mine, and he's an awesome guy. Seeing that you did his podcast, and I gave him a little shit. I said, "Hey, you stole my guess," and he kind of laughed. But I sent him a slideshow, and I don't know if I sent him a slide of what a lawmaker said in North Carolina. I don't know if he sent it to you, so I'm gonna show it to you and get your take on it and see kind of what do you think about this slide I'm gonna show you. Give
Yep.
me 1 second. Let me pull it up, and I'm gonna read it. Now, this is from a councilman or a lawmaker in North Carolina. He said, and I quote, "I still haven't been given a reasonable, rational explanation to why a private citizen who lives in a city should be allowed to keep wild, dangerous animals in their possession. What is the benefit to society that balances out the risk and danger to society?" And he says, "I get there is an industry around these animals, but that doesn't make it right for such animals to be kept in city for personal pleasure." What do you take from that email? What do how do you feel about that email?
Yeah, I mean, we can draw parallels between this stuff all day long. I mean, why does somebody need a car that can go 200 miles an hour? I mean, where do you draw the line? Do you start producing cars that can only go 70 miles an hour? Um, I mean, there's all kinds of parallels that go into that. And I actually spoke to Knight. He's the one who was pushing this big. And when I had contacted him, he said he was glad that we reached out. So I don't know when he sent that, that snippet. But when I spoke to him, he said that USARK was the only substantive comment that he had heard from, meaning, there may have been a bunch of people contacting him using our copy paste letter or something, but we were the only one that actually sent a bunch of stuff about why people keep reptiles, why they have certain species of snakes and things along those lines. So he may have changed his mind a little bit since then. Obviously he did because he backed way off on some of this. But again, when you get a cobra loose in a city, it's tough to defend keepers. And the other thing we run into, and I totally understand it, but venomous snake guys just aren't going to come out. If they're worried about a venomous snake ban passing in Raleigh, they're probably not going to be contacting the city council to say, "Hey, I keep these animals." They're just going to be quiet because, I mean, when you're keeping these animals in your house, unless somebody has a warrant and comes to your door, you don't have to let them into your house. and they're not going to know about it unless a neighbor complains or something. And that makes it hard for us to fight it, because we can't go in and say, there are 20 venomous snake keepers in Raleigh, and 19 of them are doing it right, and being responsible, because, I assure you, and he may be lying to me, I don't know, but, Councilman Knight said he hadn't heard from any venomous keepers in Raleigh. But that's part of the problem, is to come forward and say, you have people in your city who are keeping these animals right, but those people don't come forward. They may possibly pass a ban. And as for why it should be allowed, it's not the government's choice on what someone does in their own home. But again, it comes back to being responsible. So the guy who let the cobra get loose, I'm sorry, but he put all keepers at risk. It was a ban on ball pythons for a minute, because this guy had a cobra get loose. So that guy, he should be punished. But certainly someone who has the proper caging, has secondary containment, isn't letting animals get out, they should not be punished. If they want to keep cobras, then they should certainly be allowed to.
Right. Now, I'm all for it because I'm a venomous keeper. Now, I do want to ask, what are some of the things, because of course, y'all do support some laws. What is USARK for? Like, and what I say, what are y'all for? Do you want us to have licenses? Do you want us to have classes and training when it comes to venomous reptile keepers or big snakes? What is some of the stuff that USARK does support?
Yeah, it's so much, and it's conversations that the industry needs to start having, and we've been having them for a decade or more, but nothing's really come from it. And we usually don't go for the license approach. What we go for is what we call common sense legislation, and what that is it's escape-proof enclosures. You obviously can't have animals getting loose, and the reason we call it common sense is because if someone has an animal get loose, that person should certainly be punished. But if someone's being responsible, they shouldn't be required to jump through, ridiculous amount of hoops and things. And then obviously all species aren't created equally either. When you're talking about venomous snakes, a 16-year-old kid shouldn't just be allowed to go out and get a green mamba. That's a little bit crazy. I don't care. And if you agree with that, you're not supporting USARK anyway. So be mad at me all you want. But yeah, when you get into venomous and crocodilians, it's a different world. We have a huge problem with alligators across the country, because some of these shows that, they're allowing alligators to be sold for too cheap, and people get them, and, they get 3 feet long, and then they're getting let loose. And that's a problem. USARK advocates, and we have it on our website after we won our federal lawsuit. They're called reptile acquisition forms. And especially for like crocodilians, for example, if you're buying one of those, the customer should maybe sign something that says, I accept how big this animal is going to get. I accept that I'm going to keep the animal its entire life. I accept that I'll be able to provide a proper enclosure for it. And at least that makes somebody hopefully kind of think that, they're not just buying a little cute baby alligator because it's little and cute. They're thinking about how big it's going to get when it's full grown. So, steps like that are what we advocate and fight for.
Right. Now, I'm kind of curious. I know that y'all do a lot of fighting for us, but I'm wondering, while y'all are in court, do they do like kind of like video conferences, or is it more so just like the phone calls? And when you're in court fighting, how are we allowed to, like, is there like a way we could watch y'all and just be there and support? Like, a lot of us, we can't fly to Florida and be there in court with you. So are they doing anything like that to where there's like a video court?
Yeah, lawsuits. Most of our fights aren't in court, but yeah, there's nothing like that really for the lawsuit. So before COVID, obviously, if you wanted to see anything for a lawsuit, most of them did have some type of public seating. Most courtrooms do have that, so you actually had to go to the location and sit if you wanted to watch. Now, obviously, we're doing a lot of stuff over Zoom. Last year when we had our Florida lawsuit, the attorneys and the judge weren't even in the same room. It was all done over Zoom. So you could watch that if you had an invite to it, but it's not something we can send out public invites, because we actually just had it happen at a hearing in Florida. It wasn't a reptile person, but someone from, well, we think this is who it was. It was likely someone from FWC staff actually swore because his microphone was on, and he wasn't the one who was testifying at the time. And the judge obviously called that out real quick. But yeah, we think maybe someone who had an invite was a FWC officer and and said something he shouldn't have said during the trial. But yeah, so the judge wasn't super technical savvy and didn't know how to mute everybody else who wasn't supposed to be speaking. And you run into problems like that. So yeah, when it comes down to court, yeah, there's really no way for the general public to watch that stuff.
Right. Now, kind of want to have a little fun with. Now, you said you did some reptile breeding, right?
Yeah.
Got to give you a hot seat question, man. So,
All right.
who's one of your favorite reptile breeders?
Favorite reptile breeders? Jeez.
You got
I don't know.
Miguel, Ozzy, Kabelka, you know.
Yeah, there's so many guys. Honestly, one of the old timers, and it's going to be a name a lot of people don't even know about, but this guy was doing stuff, before a lot of people were. And I was on the phone with him twice already today, so I'll just give him a shout out. But it's a guy named Eugene Bassett who owns Ophiological Services down in Florida, and a lot of people don't know about him because he doesn't set up at shows. Again, he's what we'll call an old timer, one of the godfathers of the industry, over 60 years old. Obviously, not a big social media guy. And he's a wholesaler. So he's one of these guys who produces animals. And then a lot of other people are selling his animals, but they don't really know where they came from. But I mean, this guy was producing green tree pythons, 20 plus years ago before, anybody else was really doing it, and really knows a whole lot of stuff. And I used to be kind of a book guy, and, social media, I mean, kudos to all the people doing it right. But honestly, it gets upsetting at times that a lot of people don't know who made this industry what it is today, but they'll know somebody who's got, $3 or $4 million on Instagram or something. And again, kudos to those people putting out content every day, but it's important to realize where this industry came from too.
Right. I agree. Now, I do want to ask, do we have any currently, do we have any lawmakers that are on our side that are just like, no, we don't want to take people's rights away, does USARK have lawmakers that support them?
So now you're getting into the hottest of the hot seats, and we're getting into politics. And and I always got to throw another disclaimer out there. I learned a few things from these politicians along the way, but just to cover my behind, I'm not getting into which side is better than the other side. But here's what I can tell you is, on the animal side of things, I don't care if you're producing reptiles, if you're into animal agriculture, if you're breeding dogs. On any live animal side of things, Republicans are the ones that are usually pro, animal interest. And unfortunately, the animal rights people, who are the ones really trying to take all our rights away to keep these animals, the animal rights people, they're spending their tens of millions of dollars every year to talk to Democrats. That's just how it comes down. Again, I'm not telling you one party is better than the other. That's 100% fact.
Right. Well, that just want to know, do we have any people, we love you, Sark, but we want to know, do we have any lawmakers that are, on our side that we can, necessarily support them too, and just try and keep them in office so they can help us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in particular, I mean, we don't usually call out specific legislators,
no.
but we did have one in North Carolina who stepped up. It was a Republican state politician. He said, when this venomous snake came out, he said, this is one county issue. We have a state law. That county needs to deal with this issue. And, on behalf of the Republican Party, we're not looking on changing anything at the state level. So sometimes you get a lawmaker who comes out and says something like that. And obviously that might draw some support from the reptile and animal community when someone does that.
Right. Now, I want to talk about, the reintroduction of these things, because a lot of people don't understand, just because USARK, gets that win, that doesn't mean that the lawmakers can't, when you're not looking, still reintroduce something, or tack it on to another bill. Talk to me about that. Do y'all kind of watch that? Like, just because you got to win here, you still got to keep your eye on that state, because they do sometimes reintroduce stuff, don't they?
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. I hope I don't jinx myself, but USARK wins a lot. I mean, honestly, up until the last 2 years, we were batting almost 100%. I mean, it's a lot of wins, and we lost a couple battles at the state level last year. But and we don't really brag about our wins because, what's important is that we won. And, I'm not a big boastful guy. And unfortunately, you don't want to poke the bear too much. And when I say the bear, I'm talking about the animal rights people. And, USARK in a good year, we're bringing in $400,000 to $500,000 a year. These animal rights groups, every single one of them is millions of dollars. I mean, the two biggest ones in the country are $1 billion every year they're bringing in. I mean, it's it's a lot of money they got to play with, and that's all not going to reptile people. They're throwing at animal right ag and puppy breeders and all kinds of animal interest. But yeah, after you win, it doesn't mean it can't come back next year. South Carolina is a perfect example. So I was honestly surprised we pulled that one off. But South Carolina introduced a venomous ban this year, and it was 3 days left in session. We stopped the bill 3 days in a row. It got voted on 3 days in a row in session, the last 3 days of session, and it got stopped 3 times in a row. And it's one, like you just said, it may come back again next year. We're trying to do something proactive, but I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off and get our own bill introduced. But yeah, just because you stop it once doesn't mean it can't come back.
Right. So just make sure that you just keep supporting USARK, because it's not going, these lawmakers, they're not going away anytime soon. Shout out to Venom Wonderful, proud USARK member. Everyone that keeps reptiles should be a member. I agree. Now, I want to have a little fun. I hope I don't offend you. I wanted to give you an idea for a TV commercial.
All right.
Now, what we need is me in a TV commercial dressed up like Mr. T, and then so I can say I pity the fool that doesn't support USARK.
I pity the fool.
I think that would be an amazing commercial, man. I'm just having a little fun.
We'll get right on it. Hey, man, do a Instagram commercial or something.
Dude, I think I should do that. Would be hilarious.
Get it on social.
Now, I was kind of curious, some of the things that, y'all doing an amazing job, but I was wondering, have y'all ever thought about, like doing, when you're not in court, maybe like trying to do tours with lawmakers, with responsible keepers, like actually going to some of these responsible keepers' homes and showing them, escape-proof rooms, the proper setup, the cages with locks, venom protocols that where if you get bit, you know what snake you got, where the hospitals are. Have y'all ever thought about doing that?
Yeah, so that's actually something that's been done before. And again, obviously it's got to be a model keeper, a model herpetoculturist who's doing it right. But we've stopped city bans that way, where there's been a city ban proposed, and there's been a real good keeper in that city who invited the city officials to come over to his or her house and, look at it. Same thing at some state levels. Some of the breeder businesses will invite legislators into their businesses. So yeah, it's certainly something that happens. I mean, we've never done it on the level that you're talking about, but I mean, there are just some states where we don't really worry about stuff. Some states are just hot states for, reptile bans, but yeah, it's certainly something we've done on a smaller level before.
Okay. I love that. I just love that idea. Just kind of bringing them there and saying, look, we are being responsible, and I'm gonna give you an example. Here one is, and just kind of wowing them with this. But like you said, it has to be somebody that's just at the top of their game,
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Now, I kind of want to ask, do you ever, has there been a time where you actually have had that lawmaker that has called you and just like, man, wow, we had so many calls that, we don't want to do a ban?
Yeah, some of them get that. Like I said, usually what you run into is it's Republican business owners are the ones who usually say that. They don't want to overregulate anybody, and as long as somebody's doing something right, again, it's not really the government's role to tell them that they can't. So certainly that's the mentality, and it's easier to pick up at the city level, obviously, because it's easier to find some of the background and information on some of these people, but same at the state level. If you find out where they're from, you can usually pick out which politicians are gonna like to hear words like that. Like I said, usually business people who've been successful in business don't like to hear words like overreach or big government, because obviously businesses are familiar with that. The more they get taxed and the higher healthcare coverage gets, Businesses know what that's like, and it's hard to run a successful business in the U.S. It's hard enough as it is without more laws and overreach. So yeah, we certainly
Right.
take that approach sometimes.
Right. Now, with you being just on the forefront, currently, right now, where do you see the state of our hobby? Do you see, do you foresee outright bans on venomous just everywhere? What do you think the bans are going right now?
Yeah, like I said, there's some species we're just going to have to start taking a harder look at on if we want to come out with a more proactive approach. The big problem with that is you get so many people who don't want to be proactive, and most of the big stakeholders they don't want to do anything until it comes knocking at their door, and sometimes it's too late by then. So I mean, honestly, venomous is one of those that there probably needs to be a hard look at some type of licensing or something so that private keepers can start doing that. But again, the few states that still allow it, fairly openly, those people just they don't want to get involved. It was so hard to pull the venomous keepers together in North Carolina, and now they've kind of backed away from it because we stopped the bill, and we got to get proactive, and we've got the language that we want to go forward with, but still they've got to get involved and get it introduced. So yeah, it's tough.
Right. Um, I want to talk too about the new SARK, the USARK newsletter. Like a lot of people, when you go to USARK.com, you see that they put a lot of stuff on their front page of their website. But y'all have a newsletter. It's free, right? To where people can just sign up and it's sent directly to their email, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right on usark.org on the right side, it says email sign up. All you do is put in your first and last name in your email and hit click. And it's that simple. And it's important that people do that because at least then it's going to get in your email and at least you're going to be able to see it. Social media, especially Facebook, we actually have to pay if we wanted everybody to see that stuff. And obviously we don't have the money to do that. And that's not where we want our funding to go. But, in order to boost those posts and really get it out there, we're not going to pay for that. That's why if you do see it on Facebook, it's important to share it. And that certainly helps us spread awareness and makes the reach bigger than it is. But yeah, like you said, free to sign up for the newsletter.
Right. Now, this is a personal question for myself. I know that y'all do a lot of stuff for volunteers to where y'all need help. I want to know, and I'm in Kansas, is there anything that I could volunteer to help y'all with?
Yeah, I mean, at the state level, the volunteers we usually ask for, helping out with shows and the auctions and stuff. If you're somewhere where we don't have that, again, just helping spread messaging and post our stuff around on different social media outlets. Kansas isn't too far away from the St. Louis NARBC show. You could possibly drive over and help us with that. Yeah, if you want to do something from home, I mean, again, it's just there's 5 million homes in the United States that have pet reptiles. I mean, less than 1% of those people even know about USARK. So, I mean, doing things like this, I mean, you're doing something huge right now. I mean, you're set up at your home, you're doing this podcast. This is going to help spread awareness. So, I mean, this is something huge. And obviously, if something ever came to your state, it's good. If you see an alert that comes to your state, shoot us an email and say, hey, I'm in Kansas. What can I do? And then we'll have specific directions on how volunteers can help us if we have to fight something. But yeah, when there's nothing going on in a state, there's really not much you can do. What I do encourage all states to do is get a good herp society going. A lot of states ask, should we have a state USARK? And for most states, it's honestly no is the answer. Unless you're a state where you're going to have constant battles like Florida, I don't really think you should have a state USARK. What's more important is to have a good group of people. So again, this is something, if there's not one, get that going and just get like an email tree, an email chain, so that if USARK puts out an alert for your state, you have a way to spread that information around.
Right. Now, I don't know if I want to make sure I word this correctly because I don't want to upset anybody.
You're not going to upset me. Don't worry about that, man.
Now, let me see if because I want to word this correctly. Now, I would never tell people not to donate to USARK. That's not what I would never tell people that. I want people to always donate to USARK, but I want you to motivate people. And when I say that, for the people that are watching, I want you to motivate them. And when I say that, I want you to tell them, like, and I don't mean number wise, but tell them, because people don't want to, feel helpless. Can you tell them that you are seeing a little bit of donation? You know what I mean? I don't know how to word this right, but within the last year of you kind of putting in that work, are you seeing more people joining the USARK? That's how I should word it.
Yeah, the last year has been huge, obviously, and it started last year. So obviously with COVID, that changed a lot of things. But when COVID hit and we didn't really have the shows, we actually had to start. We had quite a few, big social media guys that were talking about USARK, and actually we had a big uptick last year, and this year it's been even bigger. But yeah, certainly our memberships are through the roof, and I'm getting ready to put out a newsletter. But since you have me live, I want to apologize to all the people who haven't received their shirts yet. We're way behind on membership shirts. We got to switch companies again because the current fulfillment company just isn't keeping up. So I promise everybody who's joined in the last 6 months, we'll get your shirts to you. Apologize for that. But yeah, a huge increase this year. And I mean, people may not really understand USARK, but here's a good example, and I'll bring back South Carolina again. If USARK hadn't been doing what we do, which we get alerts for these things. So the way we knew about South Carolina was every morning we get alerts through a system called LexisNexis, which is what attorneys use. And if it has a keyword in it, so this keyword was venomous. So we got an alert that South Carolina had this venomous bill coming up at the end of session. And since that was at the end of session, if USARK hadn't been here, that ban would have passed and nobody would have even known about it till after it was done. And the same for most of this stuff. Because there may be groups out there, looking out at dog legislation or animal agriculture legislation. But when it comes to reptiles, no one else is really doing what we do. And this stuff would be introduced and a lot of it would pass and people wouldn't even know about it unless a group like USARK was around. And again, it doesn't hit home until it comes to your state or city. But I mean, it could be. I'm not scaring anybody. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but we never know which state or city it's going to happen in next.
Right. DG Reptiles. He kind of answered that already, man. DG wants to know, is there anything in PA he can help with? And it just spread awareness, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. And just join USARK and send them as much money as you can.
And here's something else.
Send it.
I'm going back to your question. Sorry, I cut you off there. But talking about stuff you can do for free. So I mentioned that LexisNexis. It gets us at the state and federal level. Catches stuff, but there's no system like that for local stuff. So the way we found out about local bans is there has to be an article in the newspaper, in the media, or sometimes it's a USARK member who contacts us and says, hey, my city's proposing this. But yeah, certainly if you want something you can do for free is just kind of monitor your city's agendas, your city council agendas, and see if anything's coming up reptile related, and then obviously alert us to us if it is.
Right. So really just the biggest thing you can do for USARK is just participate and support them with money, because a lot of, and I want to talk about that too. Y'all use some of the highest quality lawyers out there, and that's not cheap, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, usually we're doing $400,000 to $500,000 a year. This year is going to be a record. We'll post all that information, and all our 990 forms are posted on our website. You can go see our tax records and everything. But yeah, just our federal lobbyist that we use is $130,000 off the top every year.
Just for one lobbyist.
Yeah, for our federal lobbyist. And then if we get a lobbyist at the state level, it really depends on the state. But state, you're looking anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 for a state lobbyist. So yeah, the money goes away quickly when we have a lawsuit. Some of these attorneys, we had an attorney on our federal lawsuit, which didn't bill us a whole lot of hours, thankfully, but $915 an hour. Think about that.
That is insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, any decent attorney, especially in a bigger state like Florida, you're looking at $400 an hour minimum. That's the low end. So that money goes away quickly when you're doing a lawsuit.
Right. One thing that I would love to see in the reptile community, but I'm not sure how we can do it. And I would love to see us just police ourselves.
Yeah, that's part of it. Like I said, some of these shows, and I couldn't believe we stopped it. So USARK actually wrote the law that passed in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago now. Because I mean, they catch like 6 alligators a year. I have no idea how a ban hasn't been passed on alligators yet, but we got it passed so you could actually have alligators as long as you registered them with the city, which was surprising. The same for venomous. We stopped a ban in Pittsburgh, but when you got these alligators being released all the time, it's only a matter of time before something happens. And same for big snakes. If you got a big snake or two that gets loose, I mean, at least a proposed ban is gonna come along the way. So, I mean, policing ourselves is a huge part of it. And again, these people aren't supporting us anyway, so I can say it, but if you're keeping an 8 foot or 10 foot retic and some big Rubbermaid on the floor with clips on it, that's not responsible. That's not how you do it. The same with venomous snakes. If you're keeping them in something that's not made for snakes specifically, I mean, you're doing it wrong, and you're making us look bad. And I don't know the best way to start policing ourselves, because obviously you can shame people on the internet, but they're not going to care. They're going to keep doing it wrong anyway. But yeah, we got to start taking steps so that stuff doesn't keep getting loose like this.
Right. Shameless plug. Shout out to Venom Proof Cages. Some of the best cages for venomous reptiles are literally venom proof. Now, before you leave, I kind of also wanted to touch base on people that are scammers. And when I say that, I want you to just tell people, donate it to, where can they send their money to? Just get on the USARK website, because a lot of people are out there that are trying to scam. How can we fight that and make sure we're not sending our money to a scammer? You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is. I mean, we even got one. I think we might be sharing it. Last week, somebody sent us a post, and there's some company that popped up. They have a website and Facebook. They said they're gold members of USARK. They're using our logo. They're totally not. And it's one of these scammers that reptile people have seen all the time. They're using pictures of other people's reptiles and saying that they have them and contact them to buy them. And I'm forgetting the name of the group now, but it was obvious it was a total scam. And they said something like 5 or 10% of their sales were going to USARK, and that's not the case. So, I mean, the best way to be safe is, just you can check with us. Hopefully we know, but a lot of people don't even contact us. Like I said, this big fight that's coming up on Friday, obviously it's legit, but I didn't even know about it till someone sent me a message or sent USARK a message on our Facebook page. Not everybody tells us about them, but we can certainly find out if somebody's scamming or not. But if you just see a general like GoFundMe or something, it's probably not legit. If you get
Right.
somebody saying a certain portion of sales are going, it's probably legit. But yeah, just if something triggers doesn't look right, just question it and feel free to shoot us a message. You can contact us through our website or on Facebook.
Right. Well, I want to say thank you, man. You gave us almost an amazing hour of just putting us in the know, making people aware. I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I'm gonna say this in front of you. You know, I'm not a scammer. I want to raise money. So if somebody wants to hit my PayPal, but it has to be 500, because I'm gonna send this to Phil. If you want to see me in a dress, you want to see me in a dress, it's got to be 500. I'm sending it to Phil. Have y'all?
I like
Have
it.
y'all?
And he'll post the receipt when he sends it to us too. That's another way to
There you
call
go.
somebody out. Say, let me see the receipt you sent it to USARK. So yeah, obviously
I will.
Derek's legit.
I will post the receipt. Um, I'm just hoping nobody does that. Mike said he appreciates your time. Um, Again, man, I first off, I just appreciate what you're doing, man. You're doing some great stuff, because I'm a reptile keeper. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you, and just keep the fight going.
Hey, thanks. And I appreciate guys like you, because like I said, I'm not a big social media guy. We get asked all the time if we're going to start doing Facebook live videos and stuff like that. And, that's just not my thing. Maybe we'll get somebody along the way who does it, but totally appreciate guys like you who are putting this stuff out there and helping spread awareness. So thank you.
Right now. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I be kind of joking a little bit, and I'm gonna tell you one of the jokes I tell, because DG Reptile says is there a way to put the attention on a different kind of animal instead of reptiles? And I actually came up with a plan, and I told somebody, can I tell you my plan?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I said, all you need is two fingers. This is the way. You don't even need USARK to get the eyes off the reptile community. This was my plan. On your way to work, just when you're driving, before you get to work, you see a gate. It's got a dog in it. Use your fingers, unlatch the gate, get in your car, and drive off.
Oh no. Oh, that's rude, man.
But you got to think though, if you got 5,000 loose dogs, the lawmakers got to focus on the dogs instead of the reptiles. How you feel about that, Mr. Phil?
Yeah. So to that question that was asked, unfortunately, every reptiles are getting the least of it. That's the sad part. People just aren't realizing it. I know that people who follow USARK, we're seeing all these laws being proposed and stuff, but honestly, we're getting about the least of it. I mean, they're trying to shut down dog breeding. I promise you that there is an agenda to shut down dog breeding. There's an agenda to stop chickens, even for eggs. They're trying to stop milk out of cows as well as, obviously hamburgers. I mean, if it's a live animal, it's a target. So we can't, unfortunately, distract us. I mean, I like the plan and the joke, but dogs are already targets, and they're trying to take them away. So they're already in the crosshairs.
Right. Well, I want to show you the chat too before we leave, man. Everybody just appreciate you. Miker said, awesome show. Kurtwood 75 said, thank you,
Awesome.
Phil.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Alex Agamis said, thank you for the good talk, Phil. You help the community in so many ways. Everybody just wants to know that they appreciate you. Mike, he says, I appreciate you, Phil. So we just want you to know that you are appreciated and the work you're doing is not unnoticed.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right, man. I'll let you get out of here. You have an amazing day. Safe flight, safe travels. We're watching you, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. Have a good one. Take care.
You two have an amazing day.
Yep.
How awesome was that, man? The president of USARK. We had a little fun. We got a little knowledge. The biggest thing is just, stay vigilant. There are new laws every day. If you're not a USARK member, become one. There's so many tiers. They got a $40 tier, $5 tier. They got student tiers. Mr. Mike, no problem. I appreciate you. That was an amazing show. Like I said, that is the president of USARK. So he's doing some amazing stuff. Make sure you support them. CSL, thank you. He said, great show. Alama Alabang, great show. DG said he still wants his shirt. Hey, you heard him. He said he's a little backed up. Because they got so many members, and like you said, within this year, he has seen a spike in numbers. So we're doing something. We're trying to put a dent, and they are winning cases, man. So Alabama says she's watching in the Philippines. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is Big Reptile Talk. Where we bring people, and the object of this podcast is just to have fun and learn a little bit while we do it. Tune in tomorrow. We're going live with Cold Blooded Cafe. We're going to go live with Cold Blooded Cafe, and we're going to talk to her, Desiree. She's doing some stuff. Lone Wolf Reptiles. I just got my alert. My shirt is coming. Awesome. Flex and Python said he is a bronze member. Flex, and we appreciate you. Again, man, Phil is an awesome guy, and we're out of here. See you tomorrow, you guys.